Welcome to Shauns Take, brought to you by the Keystone Sports Network. Here are your hosts, Shaun and Jim.
Hello and welcome to Shauns Take. He's Sean Gold. I'm Jim Galante. Sean, how we doing this week?
Doing good, Jim. Ready for episode 2 of our new show here. I'm excited to kind of get into the NFL world and free agency. That's going to cover a lot of our show today.
Show 2. Does that make us now veterans?
I think we might as well be.
Let's claim it. Let's claim it anyway, even though it's show 2. And as you mentioned, this is crazy. This has been NFL free agency week. And I'm a big baseball guy. Baseball free agency takes all winter. It takes months. There's still, in February, March, there's still free agents in baseball. And in football, they open it up, and 24 hours later, most of these guys are signed, Sean. It's a different world.
It really is. They always say that, there's the legal tampering periods and the legal negotiating periods. Somehow, when the clock hits the first second of free agency, guys have already agreed to 5-year deals. So, these agents, somehow they're finding ways to work real fast on this, Jim. But I got to say, I tweeted yesterday, or the day free agency opened, it's one of the best days of the year. NFL free agency is here. I love getting the reports. I love having ESPN on in the background as I'm working and just seeing the news come through and seeing who's signing who.
It is. It's an exciting event. It's tremendous. If you're an NFL guy, this is like Christmas Day. And, let's get started talking about some of these signings. And just like college football, it's about the quarterbacks, okay? And he's the leader of the team. He's the face of the franchise. He's the most important player on the field. And he's easily paid the most. So that affects the team, how they're being paid. So let's start with some of these signings. Let's start with the one that kind of got things going, and this was actually a trade. Geno Smith, who was with the Seahawks, he was traded for a third-round pick to the Raiders, Sean. And it's a situation where, and we'll talk about where the Seahawks went afterwards, but at the time of the trade, you're like, wait a minute, why are the Seahawks trading their starting quarterback? They don't have a backup ready to go. But no. This is the Raiders who end up with Geno Smith.
And I thought it was super interesting. And actually, right before our show, a report came out from Yahoo that the Seahawks had actually offered Geno Smith a 2-year contract extension in the range of $40 to $45 million per year, and he declined it and requested a trade instead. And I thought that was super interesting because before going to Seattle, Geno Smith was labeled as a major bust, and he really reinvented himself in Seattle and has become a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL. So for him not to want to stay there is interesting to me. And maybe there's something behind the scenes. Maybe he had an amazing relationship with Pete Carroll, who he's now going to play for in Vegas. So from the Seahawks standpoint, it seems like they wanted him. I thought the Seahawks were turning a new leaf. And as you mentioned, we'll talk about them a little bit more later, but I thought they were going to go to the draft. After trading away your veteran quarterback, I thought they'd go, let's get younger. Let's draft, one of these quarterbacks that's going to be in the first or second round and restart our franchise here. And instead, they actually wanted Geno Smith to remain their starting quarterback, and he said, I want out. So maybe there's some writing on the wall that Seattle's going to go through some turbulence. For Vegas's side, I'm 50-50 on this. I'm a firm believer that if you don't have your franchise quarterback, you need to rebuild until you find that franchise quarterback. And to me, Geno Smith has done a lot of great things the past couple of years. But do I now think because the Raiders got him that they're going to be Super Bowl contenders, let alone just playoff contenders? No, I still don't view this team as a team that's going to make it out of a very loaded division where we just saw 3 teams make the playoffs last year with the Chargers, Chiefs, and the Broncos. And I don't think that getting Geno Smith moves the needle much for Vegas. So I get they wanted to avoid a total rebuild, but they're also not setting themselves up to get a top quarterback next year because they're going to be at least a 6, 7, 8 win team. And you're going to be out of the top 5, top 10 picks to draft a rookie quarterback anyway. So the timeline I'm a little confused by for Vegas. I get they wanted a veteran presence in there, but I don't think it moves the needle enough either way. And I think they're going to be stuck in mediocrity of an 8-win season where you're not making the playoffs, but you're not resetting your franchise.
Well, I have a couple thoughts on this. I get the feeling that the Raiders didn't want to go through that complete rebuild. Pete Carroll comes in, veteran coach, didn't want to have that, 3-14 kind of season. He wanted to at least be competitive this year. But the interesting thing, as of our recording, Geno Smith has not signed a new contract with the Raiders, and he has 1 year left on this contract. So if the Raiders want, they could be free and clear after this season of the burden of Geno Smith. I wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe not that first round where it's not a great quarterback draft. We talked about this in last week's show. Are there some guys in the second or third round, a Jackson Dart type, a Jalen Milroe kind of deal that the Raiders would go to, who could sit that first year, maybe learn from the veteran, and they're not burdened by that contract from Geno Smith? What I also think interesting, you mentioned Geno Smith, pretty good seasons with the Seahawks after some not very good seasons with the Jets. That's going to become a running theme in our show today, that these guys with the Jets, sometimes I wonder how much these quarterbacks, it's about the team you build around them, Shaun.
I completely agree with that. And to touch on your draft talk right there, I think it's a must that Vegas goes out and drafts, say, Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe type of guy in the second or third round, and put yourself at a good problem next offseason. If Geno Smith has a great season, extend him. If not, hopefully you've got a rookie who had learned under him for a year and is ready to kind of take that next step forward, so they can set themselves up well for this. And it'll be interesting to see, do they agree to something with Geno this offseason, or is it a, 1 year prove it type of deal situation? Now, Geno Smith out of Seattle, Jim, Sam Darnold in Seattle. What do you think about Sam Darnold going to the Seahawks and answering their quarterback question that was left after the trade?
I think it's interesting because you had mentioned earlier that maybe Geno Smith wanted out of Seattle. They couldn't get together on an extension. And when the trade happened prior to the free agency signings, my first instinct was, what are the Seahawks doing? Where are they now? Well, they obviously already had the plan in place. They were going to bring in Sam Darnold. He's younger than Geno Smith. Maybe they like him better. They brought him in on a 3-year contract, $100 million. That's a little bit of precursor to what we're going to talk about later. If a veteran quarterback, Darnold's making upwards of $33 million a year that you're paying them. Quarterbacks are expensive, but the Seahawks saw something in him, how well he played with the Vikings. And just to add to our Jets theme here, Darnold was considered a bust when he was playing for the Jets. Surprise, surprise. He goes to the Vikings with so much more talent around him. All of a sudden, Sam Darnold is a viable NFL quarterback, which leads me to just ask the question, are the Seahawks more Vikings or are they more Jets as far as Sam Darnold's concerned, Shaun?
I think we're going to find out that they're more Vikings. And unfortunately for Sam Darnold, this 3-year, $100 million deal probably would have been a 3-year, $150 million deal if he played better in the playoffs against the Rams.
Yes.
That tanked his value. And I think it was one of the biggest, if we talk about fumbling the bag, which they say when you go into a season and a contract year, he built up his bag a whole lot. And then the playoffs came and he lost a lot of money in that. So for Seattle, I like this move. To me, Sam Darnold just fits the Seahawks. There's something about it where I think he's a quarterback. He's going to play the exact role that Geno Smith played, but they actually got him for less than what they had wanted to sign Geno Smith for. So I think Sam Darnold had such a rough time at the Jets. And like you mentioned, we've seen that time and time again, that maybe the Jets are the problem with all of these quarterbacks. He goes to Minnesota, gets support, gets a better offensive coach, all of a sudden has a great year. And I think in Seattle, he's going to be comfortable there. I'm excited to see in the draft. I think they're going to add another receiver. Obviously, Tyler Lockett, they traded away DK Metcalf. So they've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, who, Jim, you and I both know how good he is from
Oh
watching
yeah.
him at Ohio State for all those years. So you got a really good receiver there. I think they'll add another one in the draft. But overall, I would say I'm a fan of Sam Darnold on the Seahawks now.
I think it is a good fit. And I believe he's also young enough. He's 27 years old. It seems like he's been around forever. But at 27, these should still be his prime years and maybe even be able to improve. I'm with you. I think it was a good signing. And it feels like the Seahawks had a plan here and they executed it. They moved on from Geno Smith. They were ready. They acted quickly. They brought Darnold in. And as we've been saying, the common theme is Jets quarterbacks, which it never seems to work out, which leads us to our next guy, Shaun, which is Justin Fields, who you and I also know as from following Big Ten football so much and Penn State and seeing how often they play Ohio State. We're very familiar with Justin Fields. He makes the move, a 2-year contract with the Jets at $40 million. So he's making $20 million a year with the Jets. Is there any chance that's going to work out for the Jets or for Justin Fields?
It's really interesting. I was super curious to see what was Justin Fields' market going to look like, and the Jets, they didn't waste any time. They didn't look for veteran, more experienced options. They moved on from Aaron Rodgers. They went straight to Justin Fields. And being a Bears fan, I've seen a lot of Justin Fields in the NFL as well. He has a lot of good qualities to him. And I think for him to succeed in New York, they've got to get Breece Hall going and that run game going. That's what we thought we were going to get with Aaron Rodgers, was a great running game. Let Aaron Rodgers do the play action pass game and everything. And it just all fell apart with Rodgers' era in New York. I think if they can go with Justin Fields and have one of the best rushing offenses in the NFL with him and Breece Hall, you've got the read options, you've got the design quarterbacks runs, he's going to see success. And he played well with Pittsburgh last year. I think he started 7 games before Russell Wilson came in, and I think there were 5-2 in those games. He played well, but he's not going to be a quarterback that's going to win you games through the air. When you can run and play defense, that's when he can really succeed. And I think 2 years, $40 million, you're not breaking the bank to do it. But I get the same questions. Unless the Jets truly think that Justin Fields is going to become their franchise quarterback, what does this do for your timeline right now? They're not going to go win a Super Bowl this year. I don't think they're going to be ready to go win a Super Bowl next year. So are you going to put yourself in that mediocrity category again and not truly go for the future and not truly tank to reset your franchise? It's confusing timelines with some of these deals. And I don't know exactly where it leaves the Jets the next 2 years. You're going to see some promise, but I don't think you're going to see enough to say, hey, you're our guy and let's go all in on you.
That is it. And that is so typical Jets, right? And the strategy is not what you would look for from a premier franchise. I guess if you look at it, I'm not down on Justin Fields. If he had gone elsewhere, if he had gone to the Seahawks even, or the Vikings or somewhere else, I'd say, you know what, maybe he has a chance to succeed there. Going to the Jets, and I know this is an ultimate case, but if Justin Fields went to the Eagles, you'd be saying, you know what does Howie Roseman see there? And I could see if he got an opportunity that he would succeed. As we've seen with these other quarterback and Jets just doesn't seem to add up to success.
It definitely doesn't. And the one thing I'll say about this is I'm excited that Justin Fields is finally going to get his true shot. He had it a little bit in Chicago, but coaching was a mess for a while. And then the last season, it was, hey, Caleb Williams might be, the number 1 pick that you guys can get. So he was always under this, are you really going to be the starting quarterback? Are you not? Then he goes to Pittsburgh and there's Russell Wilson there. And well, he gets his shot and then he didn't, to his credit, do anything wrong. But they said, Russell Wilson's healthy. We want him to be a starting quarterback. So I'm excited to see him just be able to go to the Jets. He's their QB1. And I think they're going to give him a full shot to be QB1. And he hasn't had that for the past about 3 years in the NFL. So I'm excited for him to get that pressure off. Just go play football. And hey, if he captures any of that Ohio State magic, this could be a genius move for the Jets for all we know. So I hope for Justin Fields' sake, he can just feel comfortable in his situation for the first time in a couple years and just go play ball. Now, speaking of quarterbacks, we've talked about a lot of teams that have made moves for a quarterback. 2 teams, and this could change by the time this episode airs. Things do move fast, but 2 teams that have sat on the sidelines in the quarterback department have been the Giants and the Steelers. And for the Steelers especially, we saw them trade for DK Metcalf. You now have DK Metcalf and George Pickens, but nobody to throw them the ball. So, Jim, what do you think about these 2 teams being stagnant to start out free agency?
I have no clue what they're up to, Shaun. And it doesn't seem like they are set up for success. I know Aaron Rodgers is the name that has been thrown around for both these teams. I just don't see that working out. Now, we saw obviously he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, but he's over 40 years old now. His last stop was with the Jets. Here are his 2 seasons with the Jets. First, an injury where he misses the entire season, then a season where he plays and his numbers are the lowest, no matter which category you're looking at. Let's just go with quarterback rating, is the lowest of his long career. How much of that is Aaron Rodgers and how much of that is the Jets? Again, our common theme throughout the show. So I don't know. But I just don't think of Aaron Rodgers as the way to go for either one of these teams. But I'm just not sure. Where do they go in the draft? Do the Giants, are they fortunate enough that Cam Ward or Shadir Sanders is going to fall to them? Boy, I hope they're not betting on that because we're not sure. Now, the Steelers, further down in the draft, they've got to do something. Is it possible they'll re-up with Russell Wilson? Just don't know. I don't understand either one of those teams, Shaun.
I really don't either. And I'll start with the Giants. I think you have to go draft. You can get Aaron Rodgers, and even if he plays better than last season, your team's not nearly good enough to be ready to compete. And I get GM and head coach are feeling the pressure that if they don't have a good season, they're on their way out. But I think for Brian Daboll, their head coach, if you go find a way, trade up, or if he falls, say, Shador Sanders, I don't think Cam Ward will be there still. If you can get Shador Sanders, and it's not about the wins that season, it's about showing promise. And if you bring out a lot in him, management is going to say, okay, you're the guy that he's comfortable with, and we think he's now our franchise quarterback. We're not going to change up the entire offense and coaching philosophy for him in year 2. Now, if you get him and you show no promise on his growth, that's a different story. But there's 2 ways to save your job if you're a head coach for the Giants right now, and that's either win next year or show promise with youth. And I don't think there's any option that's going to lead them to winning and becoming a playoff team next year. You can get Aaron Rodgers. You still have no offensive line. You don't have enough skill position. You don't have a good enough defense. What's he going to do for you? For the Pittsburgh Steelers, it's a little different where they were a playoff team, and they were a playoff team through running the ball and playing defense. And now you added DK Metcalf. So you've got, that firepower offensively. But just like you said, is Aaron Rodgers going to bring you a Super Bowl at this point in his career? I think he has good football left in him. And I'm not particularly an Aaron Rodgers fan, but just because he's got some good football left in him doesn't mean that he's all of a sudden going to make the Steelers a contender. And I don't think Russell Wilson is either. So I think the Steelers are in a very difficult and strange situation right now where they do not have a plan. And they need to figure something out quick, but I don't think there's a great option out there.
I don't either. And I don't look at Aaron Rodgers as an over 40-year-old. I believe he's 41 now. I don't look at that as the guy who I feel could take me to the promised land. Not to mention, are you secure that he'll be healthy for a full NFL season? I am not. Both those teams, they've got to figure it out. Shaun, that leads me to ask you about the complete opposite of what we've been talking about, which is this free agency mode, high-cost veteran quarterbacks The only way to avoid that is, can you draft your quarterback of the future and have him for 5 years at a very reasonable contract and then build around him? Is the real model for that theory the Washington Commanders?
It 100% is. I have loved everything the Commanders have done this offseason. And Jim, I don't know if you like hearing that, being in the
No, I
same
don't.
with the Philadelphia Eagles here. But the Commanders, they draft Jaden Daniels, and everything about the Commanders exceeded expectations last year. Getting to the NFC Championship game, A++ for what you could have hoped for coming out of his rookie season. He's Rookie of the Year. He had one of the best rookie seasons we've ever seen for an NFL quarterback. And now the Commanders know we can go all in right now when we're paying him on a rookie salary and not the $200-300 million he's eventually going to make one day in the NFL. So trading for Deebo Samuel, get him another weapon. You now have Terry McLaurin and Deebo Samuel. They complement each other so well. And it allows Deebo to go back to his original role with the 49ers of being that receiver running back hybrid where he's doing all sorts of different things and isn't just being asked to be a prototypical wide receiver one. He's at his best when he's in that hybrid role. Then you go trade for a tackle, Laremy Tunsil, 5-time Pro Bowler. He didn't have as good of a season as he had the past 4 or 5 years last season, but this is still a legitimate starting tackle. So you're protecting Jaden Daniels, you're giving him another weapon, you're sacrificing some mid-round picks to do it too. This is perfect for their timeline. Now is the time to go all in. The best way to win in the NFL is when you have a young quarterback who's capable of winning on a rookie deal because you can go spend elsewhere. That's what the Chiefs did with Patrick Mahomes, and now he's on his contract, and they've been amazing that they've continuously gotten back to the Super Bowl, but his first Super Bowl and first 2 or 3 Super Bowl appearances came under his rookie deal, and that's a gold mine for NFL teams. If you can win with a young quarterback, you go all in on every other aspect of your roster. You overspend in other areas to win now. And then once you do have to get that extension, you still got a superstar quarterback and you start to figure out the other chess pieces. But winning with a rookie quarterback deal is every NFL team's dream.
And just to understand how big that difference is, good veteran quarterbacks are making over $40 million, Shaun. Jaden Daniels, his rookie contract, 4 years, $38 million. So it's $10 million a year. It's a tremendous burden if you don't hit on that pick. But if you do, the Commanders have 3 more years with Jaden Daniels under this original contract. That's a lot of time to make hay here. And but it also emphasizes it, Shaun, you better hit when you commit that first round top 10 pick to a quarterback. You need to hit on that pick to have this opportunity.
And you want to see that success immediately. I think we can look at the Commanders versus the Bears right now. The Commanders are ready to compete for a Super Bowl, and not that Caleb Williams isn't going to be the Bears franchise quarterback, but it's just a different timeline. They want, another year, I think, before they go all in on this roster. For the Commanders to be able to do that in year 2 of Jaden Daniels, A+ type of scenario for them to be in.
And that is the final word for our show today. Thank you, Shaun. That was a lot of fun talking NFL quarterbacks today. I hope you all enjoyed the show. Make sure you join us again next week on Shauns Take.
Keystone Sports Network.